A year ago, I lent a large sum of money, $10,000, to my mother-in-law. I had planned to get it back right away, but she kept making excuses and didn't repay it. One day, I received a message from my mother-in-law saying, "Come and collect the $10,000. The repayment deadline had long passed, but, well, as long as she repay it, it should be fine. Thinking that way, I went to see her, unaware of the unexpected situation that awaited me. My name is Bella, 29 years old. I quit the company I was working for when I got married, and now I work part-time at a cafe. It's been 3 years since I married my husband, Daniel, and we still don't have any children. Our house is close to my in-laws' house, so I often visit them. Therefore, I have opportunities to meet my parents-in-law regularly. My father-in-law works for a premier company, while my mother-in-law is a housewife. Maybe it was around a year after we got married, my mother-in-law's behavior started to change in a bad direction. It all started with a small thing. One day, while I was cleaning at home, the intercom rang. When I opened the front door, there was my mother-in-law standing there. "Mother-in-law? What's wrong?" "Bella, I'm sorry for suddenly show up like this. It must have been inconvenient, right?" "No, it's okay." "But what's the matter?" "Well, I have something. I want to ask you something." "Ask me?" My mother-in-law's expression seemed somewhat distressed. Worried, I decided to let her in and listen to what she had to say. "You see, it's a bit sudden for me to say this, but I need to borrow some money." "Money?" My mother-in-law is a housewife, but my father-in-law works for a premier company, so there shouldn't be any issues with income. For now, I decide to ask for the reason. "Mother-in-law, what do you need the money for?" "Repainting the walls of the house and other things. We don't have much spare money for living expenses right now." "Is that so? But don't you receive a monthly allowance from your husband regularly?" "Well, I do, but I misunderstood a bit and ended up spending it on something else. As a result, I couldn't afford the wall repainting that was supposed to be done this month. If it continues like this, my husband will get angry with me." "Mother-in-law, please calm down. First of all, how much do you need?" I think it was around $3,000. $3,000. Please, Bella. I can only rely on you. I promise to pay back $1,000 each month. Could you lend it to me? Frankly speaking, $3,000 is not a small amount. It's difficult for me to earn that much money, and I don't have enough savings to lend it easily. However, my mother-in-law is actually in trouble right in front of me. In such a situation, I can't just leave her be. "I understand." In response to my answer, my mother-in-law leaned forward. "Really?" "Yes. In return, please make sure to repay $1,000 each month, okay?" "Yes, of course." "Thank you, Bella." My mother-in-law took my hand and joyfully shed tears. Seeing her like this, I thought it was good to be able to help her. When she is leaving, she said something strange. "You know, Bella, about what happened today. Don't tell your father-in-law." "I understand. I'll keep it a secret." "Thank you. And also, I don't want you to tell Daniel either." "Huh? Why?" "If Daniel accidentally mentioned it to your father-in-law, it would be a problem, you know?" So I want it to be a secret between you and me. I see. Daniel isn't the type to blabber, so I think it'll be fine. But maybe my mother-in-law feels responsible for this situation? If that's the case, maybe it's better to keep quiet as she requested. With such thoughts in mind, I decided to keep my promise with my mother-in-law. I spent some time without thinking too much about it, but even after 2 months, even after 3 months, the $3,000 I lent to my mother-in-law never returned. 6 months later. Since there was no sign of my mother-in-law returning the money no matter how much time passed, I decided to visit my in-laws directly. When I rang the intercom, my mother-in-law's eyes widened in surprise as soon as she saw me. However, she quickly returned to her usual smile. "Welcome, Bella. Please come in for now. Thank you for having me." I was led into the living room and sat in front of my mother-in-law. Just as I was about to say, my mother-in-law interrupted me. "Is it about the money?" "Yes. Mother-in-law, you said you would repay $1,000 each month, right?" "Yes, I remember it clearly. I don't want to say this, but it has been half a year already." Hearing that, my mother-in-law let out a sob. "Ugh. I'm sorry. I know it's not right. But we're going through a really tough time too. I understand that it's tough. But I didn't give you that $3,000, you know that, right?" "I know. I will definitely repay it, so please, just wait a little longer." Mother-in-law. I couldn't further press the issue when she was crying in front of me. On that day, I couldn't get the money back and silently returned home. I couldn't even complain to my husband since I had made a promise with my mother-in-law. Finally, it was after about a year since I lent the money that I received the $3,000 back from my mother-in-law. Moreover, there was no sorry for the delay, or even a thank you. I felt a little frustrated, but perhaps my mother-in-law was also in a desperate situation. I told myself that, and decided to put this matter to rest. My mother-in-law came to visit again, and she said, "I need you to lend me some money," about 6 months later. And this time, it was $10,000. I couldn't help but let out a surprised voice at the amount of money she is asking. "Ha, $10,000? You must be joking, right? I'm not joking about something like this. Please, Bella, I can only rely on you. Even if you say that, $10,000. It's no wonder you're shocked. But I can't tell anyone else. I can't rely on anyone else. That's why I need your help." Faced with my sobbing mother-in-law, I also didn't know what to do. However, I couldn't just readily lend such a large sum of $10,000. Considering the previous delay in repayment, I couldn't easily nod my head. Mother-in-law, why do you need 1 million yen? Well, unless you tell me the reason, I can't lend you the money, I said firmly, and after a moment of silence, my mother-in-law slowly began to speak. Actually, I helped a friend. Helped? A certain friend fell seriously ill. She lives alone and have no one to rely on. But she needed money for medical treatment, so she turned to me. And that's why you lent her $10,000. Yes, but that $10,000 is my husband's money. I have to return it to the account as soon as possible. If that's the case, why not honestly tell your husband about it? It's not like you did something wrong. Then, my mother-in-law slammed the desk and glared at me with intense anger. "That won't work. I have to return it immediately. Your father is strict about money. No matter how good the reason is, if it's exposed, it will be a disaster for me. But, still. Please, Bella. This will be the last time. I won't trouble you anymore, I promise. I'll return the money right away. So, please, just this time." I knew that my father-in-law was strict about money. And my mother-in-law, too, did something out of consideration for her friend. Thinking that way, I couldn't turn down my mother-in-law, and I ended up agreeing. Time passed, and it had been a whole year since I lent 1 million yen to my mother-in-law. The money still hadn't been returned. There was no sign of it being returned. Moreover, I discovered that I was pregnant. Once the child is born, we will need a lot of money in the future. I want that $10,000 to be returned as soon as possible, even a day earlier. Since I'm in the early stages of pregnancy and need to prioritize rest, I couldn't just go to my in-laws' house easily. Instead, I kept in regular contact with my mother-in-law. At first, I received responses like "just wait a little longer," but recently, there has been no communication at all. I wonder if she's unaware or deliberately ignoring me. Either way, things can't go on like this. Finally, I decided to talk to my husband. "Daniel, I've been silent about this for a while. I lent money to your mother." "To my mom? How much?" $10,000. "What? $10,000? Are you kidding? Why such a large sum? Did she force you to give it?" "No, it's not like that. There were reasons for her, too. I lent it with her consent. But even after a year has passed, she hasn't returned it. Are you kidding me? You lent it a year ago." I told my husband the details of the situation, and he sighed deeply and said, "I'll call my mom." Over the phone, I could faintly hear my mother-in-law's voice, filled with tears, and it made me feel a slight sense of guilt. However, thanks to my husband persuading her to repay, the situation calmed down for the time being. The next day, I received a call from my mother-in-law, which was rare. "Hello. Bella, I asked you not to tell Daniel, didn't I? I am sorry. But it's been a year since I lent the money. Do you think I have no intention of repaying you? While I'm going through my own difficulties, I've been preparing to repay it. I didn't mean that. I just need the money because I'm having a child and it will require expenses in the future. I want it back as soon as possible. I understand that. But that doesn't mean you should go and tell Daniel, right?" I was blamed, and all I could do was apologize. "Just wait until I repay you, and don't contact me. Don't say unnecessary things to Daniel either." She said that and abruptly hung up the phone. A few days later, I went to the hospital for my baby's regular checkup. On the way back, I witnessed my mother-in-law entering a pachinko parlor. From outside, I watched as she spent a considerable amount of money. I panicked with anger and confusion. What on earth? She won't repay the money, but she's enjoying herself at the pachinko parlor. Could it be that she used all the previous money on this? Troubled by this, I immediately hired a detective and requested an investigation into my mother-in-law's personal life. As expected, it turned out that my mother-in-law was burdened with debt due to gambling. At that moment, anger rushed through my entire body. Unbelievable. She lied to me and borrowed money, only to using for pachinko. This is not a joke. I will never forgive her. She must repay it in full. I had my husband call her again about this matter, and it seemed that my mother-in-law realized it was serious, because a few days later, she sent me an email. "I've prepared the borrowed amount. Please come and collect it." Though I had my doubts, I wanted to make sure she repaid the $10,000 whole amount. Worst case scenario, I was prepared to make her kneel and beg. With that intention, I headed to my in-laws' house. As soon as I arrived, my mother-in-law stared at me with an unsatisfied expression. Surprisingly, my father-in-law was also in the living room, and his expression was tense. Then my mother-in-law awkwardly took out an envelope and said, "Bella, here you go," as she handed it to me. "Let me count it." I opened the envelope, took out the money, and counted the amount bill by bill. Taking my time, I made sure the $10,000 was all there. That's when my father-in-law spoke with a stern expression. "Hey! Despite being offered assistance, what's with that attitude?" "What? Assistance? At least show some gratitude. This insolent person." Next to my father-in-law, my mother-in-law turned pale and looked flustered. Seeing her like that, I immediately understood. My mother-in-law had made me the villain and obtained this 1 million yen from my father-in-law. She must have feared her wrongdoing being exposed and desperately tried to smooth things over. "Father, please calm down. Bella didn't have any ill intentions." "What are you talking about? Demanding $10,000 because you're having a child and don't have money? It's beyond unreasonable." "But, you know. It's said that childbirth involves various expenses nowadays." "It doesn't matter. A couple should figure out together. Honestly. Besides, why isn't Daniel here? That stupid son of mine." My father-in-law blamed me as if it were my fault. As my father-in-law spoke, my mother-in-law's true intentions were gradually revealed. Unable to bear it any longer, I finally decided to reveal the truth. "If I may, father-in-law, I had lent $10,000 to your wife. I'm here today, just to collect it." "What? What are you talking about?" "I said it just now. I came here today to collect the 1 million yen I had lent to your wife." "What? What does that mean?" My father-in-law widened his eyes and looked bewildered at my words. My mother-in-law, sweating nervously, tried to stop me, saying, "Bella!" Ideally, my mother-in-law should have repaid the money, and that would have been the end of it. However, this time it was different. My mother-in-law had been using my money to fuel her gambling addiction and even incurred debt. I sternly looked at the two of them. "Father-in-law, let me be clear about this. Your wife has borrowed $13,000 from me." "What? $13,000? She has already repaid $3,000 of it. Today, I came to collect the remaining 1 million yen. I didn't come here asking for assistance." "What? What's going on? You said that Daniel and the others were struggling because they couldn't afford the childbirth expenses, didn't you?" Even though my father-in-law confronted her, my mother-in-law remained silent, trembling. In place of my mother-in-law, I explained. "Your wife has debt, and the cause is pachinko." "What? Debt from pachinko. She pretended as if she needed money and borrowed it for gambling. I don't know if she used my money for pachinko or if she applied my $10,000 to the debt she accumulated from pachinko, but one of the two happened. Are you serious? If it's true, you should apologize to Bella. Interrupting my father-in-law's words, I continued. In any case, I can't forgive her. I'm sorry, but from today onwards, I want to cut ties with your wife. The phrase cut ties seemed to shock her, and my mother-in-law leaned forward, tearfully pleading. Wait, Bella. It's not what you think. There's a reason behind this. What's different then? It's a fact that you had debt and used my money for gambling, isn't it? Well, moreover, you made me the villain in the end and forced your husband to come up with money. I have no intention of continuing as a family with someone like you. That's why there's a reason behind this. Shut up! You have no sense of propriety. No matter how much you suffer, I won't help you anymore. Go ahead and suffer on your own, whether it's through debt or anything else. And fall into hell just like that, you damn gambling addict. I put the envelope containing $10,000 in the bag and left my in-laws' house. I will never return to this house again. I swore it in my heart. That night, my mother-in-law came to our house to apologize. I coldly stared at her as she sobbed and prostrated herself. I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. You didn't have to do it. Neither my husband nor I intend to forgive you. Don't say that, please. If I'm not forgiven by you, then my husband won't forgive me either. Huh? I don't care. It's bothersome, so could you leave now? Please. Mom, it's too late. Even I can't protect you anymore. Saying that, my husband kicked his mother out by force. In the end, it seems that my mother-in-law was told by my father-in-law to get a divorce. However, it wasn't an immediate divorce. It was on the condition that she would work and repay the $10,000 that my father-in-law had taken on, and then they would proceed with the divorce. And so, my mother-in-law, fearing the impending divorce, started working from morning till night. She, who had been a housewife, now had to earn a living on her own. It must have been quite difficult for her. Since then, my husband and I haven't seen my mother-in-law. We deleted her contact information and moved near my husband's workplace. We will never meet my mother-in-law again. However, there is no sense of loneliness. Why? Because a new life has been born into our family. The three of us, together with our child, are now living happily. If this child gets married, I will make sure not to become a mother-in-law like my own. I made that vow in my heart as I tightly embraced my child.